All right, so let's get going for today. We have made it to week 4, and it's time for us to check out strings. Very good. I have to refresh my page. Time for us to check out strings and files, right? So we saw a little bit about strings a little bit last week because we talked about lists. Lists are part of sequences. We also talked about collections, which are dictionaries. So today we'll be looking at, definitely strings and files. So what is our focus going to be on? Our focus will be on the string basics. We try to achieve that understanding. We'll also talk about methods of strings. Strings have wonderful methods that help us out a lot. And the string formats that I see you're very comfortable with, break down a little bit of history, and very, very important, file basics. We're going to talk about how we use files in Python, how it ties in with what we said on day 1, and some of the operations that we do with files. So without much ado, let's jump in real quick. So big picture, we'll be looking at interactions with strings and the operations. We'll also make our programs to be more persistent by using files, so we don't have to keep starting from scratch every single time.
Yeah.
All right. So what is a string? Basically, a string is, characters that you've put them together. So each character is an item, and the position where the character is located is the index, as you can see here on the right picture. The word Python is a string, which is made up of 6 characters. Again, 0 index based, so it starts from 0 to 5, or you can count it backwards, and starting from the last item as an index of -1. But unlike lists, strings cannot be changed. Okay, so we cannot come in here and say we want to change this string from Python to Jython to change the P to the J. It's going to refuse that because a string is an object. What we can do is we can just create a variation of that original. We could use slicing, or we can append. Maybe we want to add more stuff to that string, but that will create a brand new string for us. Okay, so a few things, to write a string, you can use a single quote, or you can use double quotes, or you can use 3 quotes, which is very useful when you have apostrophes in your sentences, or you have quotations in your sentences, and so on. So strings, normally you'd see them most of the time on one line, but in some cases you would need a \n to take you to a new line. Or if you use 3 quotes, then you can write multi-line as you need. So that's usually helpful to make your code more legible and easy to read through. But now that we've talked about strings as being lists, in list you can traverse list. So we're going to talk a little bit about the in operator. The in operator, you can use that to find a particular character within a string. So for instance, if I said T in Python, it's going to return true because the in operator returns a Boolean value. If I went ahead and did X in Python, it's going to return a false because there's no value in there. All right. So again, you can compare strings together. Python starts with a P and Java starts with a J. So if all of them are of the same case, maybe lowercase or uppercase, and you compare them, are they equal? Apparently not. Is Python greater than Jython or Java? Python will be greater than Java because Python begins with a P and Java begins with a J. So you can compare those letters in the alphabet as well.
Yeah, so technically it's just considering the length of the string, right?
Not really the length. It starts with the characters.
Okay.
So if it's a string with 2 or 3 letters, it could still be bigger than a string with 10 letters because a string with 10 letters.
Oh, okay, I see that. Yeah.
Right, and then the other one starts, so it checks each one of those first. Also, we're going to look at some later on after this review. I'm going to do a few exercises. We're going to be able to look through a list. We talked about loops and iterations earlier. To do that, we need to use either a while loop or we can use a for loop, and so on and so forth. But counting too is another thing that you use often. Maybe if you want to look through a list or look through the characters of a list, you could probably need to create a variable to hold a counter each time you go through. Maybe you're searching for a particular value or a particular character. Then you get to update that counter and say, okay, we found 1 time, add 1. We found it again, add another 1. At the end of the day, you can print out that counter to tell you how many occurrences are within your string. That covers the basics of a string so far, and we took quite enough time to do it, so that's good. Now, we did talk about lists. Lists did have methods, some very useful methods that we use, like appending stuff, sorting stuff, and so on. The same is the same holds for strings. Strings have methods. Okay, so first thing again, strings are Python objects. So as objects, they are part of the str, which stands for string or stir, the stir type, and you can use it directly. So that means if you have a string that says hello, you can go ahead and type that string hello. You use what is known as the dot notation. You put a dot at the end of hello and use any of these methods.
Yeah, those methods.
Yeah. So there's a subtle difference between a function and a method. The function is not really tied to an object. It's not tied to a class, but the method is tied to an object. So for a method, you call it differently. There's a different syntax to call a method. Instead of writing capitalize and then putting your value inside, you have to write your value, use a dot notation, and then type the method.
Yeah.
Excellent. So the easiest way to find out, the different methods that you have for whichever data type, you just use dir and put the data type in quotes, in parentheses, and you should be able to get all of that. We'll look at that shortly too. And also, you can use the help to be able to give you some kind of description or some, should I say, guide or explanation of what each of these functions.
Yeah.
But the ones that you use commonly, I'm pretty sure you've used some of these. Title is
Yes.
going to make everything have an initial capital letter, or change all the characters to lower or uppercase. And the split is very useful. Okay, when you start working with different types of files, if it's a comma separated file, if it's a tab separated file, if it's using a particular delimiter, you can use that delimiter to split the file into separate chunks, maybe separate columns and so on. But if you want to be able to join it, you can also use the join method to be able to have two strings and join them together. Sounds good?
Yeah.
Excellent. Now for searching stuff within a string, again, remember a string can be really long. It doesn't have to necessarily be short. You can use the find method. It's very similar to in. When you use in to say A in banana, it's going to return you true or false. But with the find method, it's going to return you the position of the first occurrence of that character.
Okay.
Or of that string, substring. If it does not find it, it's going to return -1. Okay.
Okay.
Excellent. And just like your regular, browser or Word document or editor, you can also replace. So you can do search and replace, or rather in this case, just replace, to be able to substitute characters or substitute part of your code or your integer string with something else. Count, again, we talked about count. Count will just give you the length of your string, or you can use length. Okay. So in some cases, you might need to check if a value is numeric or if it's a decimal or if it's something else. In that case, you can use it's numeric, it's decimal, and so on. Starts with, ends with. Strip is also a very useful one. You use the strip method if you want to make sure you get rid of the extra spaces, whether it's tabs or spaces after the user inputs a value. So again, add those. And one thing that I forgot to mention here is you can chain these methods together. So what I mean is you can have let's say the user inputs information, you can then set it to say that input value dot upper to set everything to uppercase, followed by another dot notation and say strip, that way you get rid of all the white spaces and also make it uppercase. So it should work just fine. But like we said earlier, strings cannot be changed. So all of these methods are going to return new values. What you need to do is maybe assign these new values to something else, or reassign it to the old value. Sounds good?
Yeah.
Excellent. So we talked about basics. We just also covered the string methods. Let's look at the formatting style. All right. So we saw this operator, this percentage operator earlier when we talked about operations. It was used for integers though, to be able to find what was it giving us again?
It's a modulo, right?
Yes, the modulo operator. So it gives you the remainder. So if you divide any number by 2 and the modulo operator returns any value other than 0, it's not even, right? But with strings, that percentage sign is a format operator. So it's used for formatting the string, especially when it's time for you to print it out to print an output to the console. So in this case, we created a variable called name and we gave it the name Young Wonks. We wanted to create another variable, which is a string. And in this case, it says hello, %s. This percentage, this format operator is telling us that, hey, wherever you see this, substitute it with the name that we have already generated. So you use %s for string. You can also use %d or %i for integers. And for float, there are a few options. There's a whole table on python.org that has all the different, there are many of them, maybe 12 to 15 different types of data types that you can use this percentage with. But back in the days, what was popular was concatenation. If you needed to make changes, you just go ahead and add the two strings together. And then we started using the format operator. This format operator is not the best as well. So we moved ahead with the format method. So this format method, or should I say format function, actually does work by creating an empty placeholder. So it creates an empty placeholder, as you see in this case of line number 4. Here we say the string.hello, the empty curly braces represents whatever you have in your format. So that's representing name. In other cases, you might have more than one variable that you need to put in there. So you have your curly braces, you enter 0, 1, 2, depending on how many you have. And then you can list them in the right order in your format parameters. Sounds good?
Yeah.
Excellent. So but finally, the greatest of all of them, which is known as interpolation, has come aboard now, where you can use F keyword for format, and then you type in whatever you need to type in. Just make sure that it's the right string that you're looking at. But yeah, so this is very elegant. It's easy to read as well. So that's something that I'll encourage you to do or use. Sounds good?
Yeah, I like the F string one. It's easy for me.
Yeah, the F string, once you use it a few times, it's easy. But don't be confused if you see others using the other one. So you
Yes.
can definitely tell when someone learned how to code based on the way they write their code. If you see people still using percentage %s, those are people that learned from the 80s and 90s maybe.
Yes.
Excellent. So let's check out the next thing is our break for the day. But what question do you have, or what questions do you have before we take our break? I'm going to do a quick 5 to 10 minute demo before we go onto our break.
Yeah. No, I'm good. I'm just excited about the thing that we're doing.
Excellent. You're excited about your stuff. So yeah, we did a lot of exercises with the list the last time. So again, for our quick break here, if we look at an example, let me go to day 4. Yep. I don't want to use that now. Let me create a new one. And it should be day 6 anyway, day 7, sorry. So we named that to day 7. There you go. Now it should run just fine. So our fruit again is a variable, and we wanted to say mango. For mango, if we execute that, we can see nothing happens. But if we type in fruit, if I can spell correctly, we should have mango returned. We can check the type of this fruit. It should tell us it's a string. So now that we know that mango is a string, we can check the different types of methods that we can use on mango. So execute that, you can see there's a bunch of different methods. It will also be the same thing if I just went ahead and typed in, instead of str, if I typed in fruits in there, it should still give me the same because that's still representing a fruit. If we want to get a verbose way of doing it, meaning including all the different functions or the description of all these different methods, we can use help, type in str, or let's go ahead and do mango fruits. Execute that. Oh, never mind. Help for str. There you go. So yeah, so it's telling you, let me find something that looks nice. Count is going to take, it does take a subset. So it returns a number of non-overlapping occurrences of substrings sub in a string. Optional arguments are start and end, which are interpreted as a slice. So center again returns a centered string of the length width. And format, which we know already about, it returns a formatted version of the string and substitutes, and can also use substitutions and so on. Yeah, index tells you the location of an item. You see a lot of these is al, num, is alpha, is ASCII. Those are really useful, again, as we said in the last class, for passwords. Maybe you want to look at the line of code or on a string and identify if there are any numbers in there or any characters in there. If let's say it's an account number, and make sure that there are no numbers in there and so on. If there's a number, if there's a character in the account number, you can say, okay, that's an error, input the right one. So yeah, those are some examples of how you would be able to identify what are some of the things about a string that you can use. Sounds good?
Yeah.
So a quick check again. Let me go back in there and type in fruit. Fruit gives me mango. So now I want to check, is there the letter V in mango? That should tell me, no, there is not. Oops. I shouldn't have mango. I should have fruit.
Yeah.
Yep, so that tells me it's false. But I can also go ahead and ask, is there a letter N? Oh, running out of CPU. Is there a letter N in fruit? And it tells me, yes, this time around, you're true, there is a letter N in fruit. Sounds good?
Yeah.
So that's a quick way to check. And again, when we come back from our break, we'll carry on with files. And then after that, we'll do a few more exercises with strings, and then a few more exercises with files. And probably try to do a few fun examples to see how we can help. Sounds good?
Yeah, cool.
Excellent. So yeah, it's going to be really easy for us to drive through this one. So I'll give you 10 minutes break, and then when you come back, we'll carry on from there.